Good morning and welcome back to Page Farmstead. A little bit different type of video today. I wanted to just talk about all of the chicken coops and chicken tractors that we have here. We have several different ones that I've built over the years. And I just want to talk about the pros and cons of them, sort of the features that we have, maybe give you some ideas if you're building a chicken coop, or at least give you an idea for the things that I think are important when you're creating a structure for your chickens to live in. So come with me, let's check them out. Okay, so I'm going to go in the order that I built these. If you've been watching the channel, if you've been keeping up, you will have seen all of these at some point, but I just want to talk a little bit about how they came to be and how we're using them now. So this is actually not the first chicken coop that I ever built, but this is the earliest one that I still have. So you'll notice as we go through all of these that one of the first themes is that all of them are mobile. That is important to me. So chicken coops that don't move, or hen houses or chicken houses, those are a totally legitimate solution to keeping chickens, and I don't want to knock it, but the way that we do chickens, we want to be able to move them. We really like to use the chickens to help us grow better pasture and to manage certain areas of our land when we need it. So it's important that we be able to move them, because if chickens are in one place all the time, they will eventually wear out the space that they're in. They will decimate all of the plant life in the area, and they will get down to bare dirt. Now, if your goal is to have chickens turn over compost for you, or just create compost over time that you can use in your garden, then maybe a static chicken coop is a great solution for you. Okay, so this coop is built on a trailer frame. This is a 4-foot by 8-foot trailer frame that I picked up on Craigslist some time ago, and it just has a pretty basic shed type of construction. And this was originally built with the purpose of being a hen house that could be moved around the property with a temporary fencing around it to contain the chickens. When we first moved to this property, we used this for quite a while, maybe a year. The problem that we had with this was we have too many predators here. So fox, coyote, and hawks are the main ones that I've seen, but we were losing all of our chickens when we first moved here. So we had several flocks of chickens that we lost completely. So we had to move away from this particular idea. We simply could not afford to have the chickens free roaming all day. Now, the great things about this chicken coop, it looks great, I think. It's a little bit dirty right now, but it's pretty cute. I painted it a nice color. I put some little detail. We have this cool glass washboard window, and it looks pretty good. And for the flock size that we had at the time, this was totally accommodating. We have roost bars on the inside, 3 of them that go the entire length of the coop, which is plenty for a lot of hens. So you'll see here on the backside of this coop, you get a much better look at this metal roof, which is great. Metal roofs are fantastic. They last forever. They're very easy to install. And they shed trash and so on really, really well. If everything I owned could have a metal roof, it would. But unfortunately, it is a bit heavy, and it's not particularly economical when you're building. It's kind of expensive. This does have a gutter on the back. I did intend to have a rainwater catchment system for this coop, but with the chickens out free roaming, I wanted water outside. And so what I ended up doing was just setting a waterer under the exit of the gutter. I had a waterer there with an open top, and it just filled it up. So this is the feeder. It can be filled from here from the back, and this feeder will hold an entire 50-pound bag of feed. I've moved away from this idea of bulk feeding just because my experience says that this leads to more waste. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but my sense is that it does. So I've moved to other feeders now, as you'll see, that I do have to fill regularly every day or two, but they hold a lot less feed, and in my opinion, that translates to a lot less waste. Not much else to talk about back here. There is ventilation in the backside of this coop. It's hard to tell, and it's going to be hard for me to shoot, but the entire ceiling of this coop is also ventilated. So the whole thing is hardware cloth. So there's a pocket the size of a 2x4 that goes under this roof, between the roof and the ceiling of the coop, and it's entirely ventilated. So air can flow out of the top of this really, really well. I think even with that, this coop is a little bit under ventilated. If I was going back to build this again, I probably would ventilate the top part of this wall pretty significantly. The use case that I built this for, the chickens were only in here at night, so I don't think it was a big deal then, but Now I'm using this coop as a brooder. In case you don't know what a brooder is just a space that you use to raise young chickens. So I put chicks in here at a day old or a week old, and I'll leave them in here until they're 8 weeks old, say, and then move them out into something that's totally outdoors. This is great for little ones because it can be outside, but it's totally enclosed. It's 100% enclosed. So there's really no openings to get in here for predators or for little baby chickens to get out. And that's really important for a brooder. So it's working really well as a brooder, but it needs more ventilation because when you're brooding the chickens, they are in here 24/7. So they're locked in, and it gets pretty dusty and a little bit smelly in here after, especially once they're a little bit older and producing a lot of excrement. It gets a little bit nasty in here. So if I were going back to build this again as a brooder, I would put quite a bit more ventilation. So I mentioned some of what was going on here, but just to run through it, this door is the chicken door. So when I was letting the chickens out every day, I would open this up and they could come and go as they pleased all day long. This window is a little bit for light, but mostly this was intended as a bit of ventilation. Again, I think I've undersized the ventilation on this whole thing, so just keep that in mind. I think that's a shortcoming. And last, of course, this is the access door for us to be able to get in, clean stuff out, or get in for whatever we may need to do in there. So, all right, well, down here on the end, you see the nesting box. You want the nesting box to be lower than the roosts for the most part. So this one's at about the same height as the floor of the coop itself. So it's above ground level, but it is below the roosting level. So the nest box opens with just this lock here, and there are 3 boxes, which in my experience is good for a lot of hens. They'll fight over one box. So I'm not exactly sure how many that's good for, but I would say easily 30 hens could use just this size nest box. All right, so moving to the inside, you'll see there's roost bars in here. I apologize for all the stuff. These are heat lamps and so on from brooding, which we just finished, but there's 3 full-length roost bars in here. So they say that you need about a foot of roost bar per bird, which in this case there's 24 feet of roost bar, and in my experience that's pretty conservative. So I would say for 24 feet of roost bar you could probably have more like 30 hens. Over here you'll see the feeder from the inside. It's pretty dirty, especially on camera. But as they eat from the trough area, food just falls down from the back. So it's a gravity fed feeder. So that pretty much does it for this coop. I think if you had an operation where you could move your hens around and let them free roam, something like this is probably really, really good for you. And this would be good for, I would say, 30 or 40 hens. So let's go to the next one. All right, next up is our flat Joel Salatin style chicken tractor. So if you're unfamiliar, this style of enclosure is inspired by a guy named Joel Salatin, who's a regenerative farmer in Virginia. He's inspired a lot of the ways that we raise chickens, but specifically inspired this design, and we call this a chicken tractor. So I initially built these to house meat chickens, but I have since used them for egg layers, raising juvenile chickens, and now for roosters only. So obviously just from looking at it, you can tell how simple this particular design is. It's just a box with chicken wire, and we have the back half of it enclosed with a tarp. So this is a really, really simple design. It has a connected trough that's right here for food, which obviously you fill by hand, and then a waterer here in the corner, which you also fill by hand, although it will collect a little bit of rainwater that just falls in it with the open top. This is pretty much no good for actively laying hens. There's no nest box. There's no designated space for them to lay eggs. But this is perfectly fine for any chicken that doesn't need to lay. And of course, the open bottom design allows whatever chickens are in here to work the land. So they're able to scratch and get at all of the pasture grasses, bugs, and get into the dirt like they want to as chickens. It's serving me really well right now to house these roosters. These are all of our breeding stock roosters. So everyone in here is a purebred rooster of some sort. And they're what gave us our new chicks this year. So this is just as simple as it looks. It's hard to tell on camera, but there is a wire handle on the front of this chicken tractor. and you simply drag it across the ground. It's as simple as it gets. This particular one is 8 feet by 8 feet, so 64 square feet. And I'm not exactly sure what the optimal number of birds to have in here is, but I've had 30 meat chickens in it, and I've had about 30 juvenile laying hens in here. I put them in here sort of as a stopgap, a holdover between the brooder and then getting into a formal chicken coop with laying boxes and so on. So it's super lightweight, it's easy to handle, and it works really well. It was inexpensive to build. I have a set of 3 of these that I've been using now for, I guess, 4 or 5 years, and they've worked really, really well for us. So just keep in mind that while these are super simple and easy to build, they won't serve you particularly well long term if what you want are laying hens. All right, next up we have this absolute behemoth. I say that lovingly, but this is a heavy chicken tractor. So after realizing how many issues we were going to have with predators here at this property, we decided to move to a model where our laying hens were fully enclosed 100% of the time. And of course, that meant building something that was not only mobile, but also had all of the things that you need for laying hens, like nesting boxes. And I really wanted a rainwater collection system and then feeders that were permanently in place. So this was my very first attempt at a sort of fully integrated, mobile, fully enclosed laying hen coop. And I got to tell you, there's a lot to love here. This is a very ample sized coop. It's 10 feet by 12 feet. So this is plenty big for 30 or 40 hens to be in here. Of course, it does have a nesting box. It has rainwater collection that automatically fills waterers inside, and it has permanently affixed feed troughs on the inside that I just step inside and fill every day. It's got a nice big man door on this end, and I made a system to help move this coop that works really, really well. The big downside to this coop is it's just heavy. So I just wanted to show how this system works. This is something that I made. So this is a tractor drawbar, which I welded a couple of axles onto. So there's one axle that goes into the coop, and then there's one axle that comes into the wheel here. So you can see how they're attached there. Now this one that goes into the coop, it goes into 2 bearings here. And basically, when you lift up on this handle, it pivots up and over, and it ends up resting on this bolt. And it's over center, and so it locks in place and holds the wheel as you move it. So this whole system works really well, but another downside to it is it was pretty expensive. These wheels and tires are not cheap. This big drawbar was not inexpensive. Nothing about it was particularly cheap, and when it comes to raising chickens for eggs, one of the keys in these structures is to keep them inexpensive. And this one was not inexpensive. So obviously I have one of these wheels on each side, and I think in total they cost me around $500 to put together, and that's just kind of too much. The other thing to say about this wheel system is that although it works very well, the coop is very heavy, and it makes it hard to push just because of the weight, especially if one of these wheels falls into a hole or needs to go over a big bump. And it's not something that I would feel comfortable asking anybody else to do. It's a workout for me, and I'm not a small person. So moving inside, you can see the feed troughs here, which are hung from chains that come down from the ceiling. And then since we're up here, I'll just show you that there are roost bars all over the place up here. And this is kind of neat because once the chickens are up here on the roost bar, they're actually fully protected from wind and rain and so on because the sides are metal here. So it's pretty neat if you walk out at night and the chickens are all up roosting. You can't see anything. You can't see any chickens. It looks like an empty coop. Moving towards the back, we have the waterers here. So it's a 10-gallon waterer. So 2 5-gallon buckets, and these have little nipples on the bottom that the chickens can drink from. Those buckets get fed directly from the gutter. So I know this looks kind of complicated, and I won't go into the sort of plumbing of the whole thing, but basically the water comes out of the gutter, it comes down this pipe, and it ends up filling up these buckets, which the chickens can then drink from the bottom. So you can see that this whole coop is framed similar to how you would frame a shed or something. It's all wood construction basically with a metal roof. It's pretty basic. Down here at the base of the walls of the coop, I have a 2x6 and a 2x4. And that provides a really heavy base, which makes this coop sit down nicely on the ground so that things can't really dig underneath of it. Lastly, from the inside, you'll see the nest box. This is a rollaway type nest box, which I won't get into because I have an entire video about this, and I'll try to link to that. But these hens that are in here are only 13 weeks old, so none of them are laying yet. But once they start laying, I will open up this roost bar and allow them to get in there to lay eggs. So the key takeaways from this are, I think it's a really well-built coop. If you wanted a static coop, something that was going to sit in one place, I would suggest that you almost copy this and build it in place. The water collection system is awesome and it works great. I love having the hanging troughs in there, and I love all the protection that the birds get from the elements because of the metal roof and these metal sides. It's really great and it works really well. I'd also say that the wheel system that's on this is something worth copying. It works really well. And if this was much lighter weight, it might be a little bit overkill, but it works great. It's very easy to use. It's very quick. It's a little bit expensive, but if that's not a problem, then I really love the wheel system on this. And you could apply that to a different overall coop design. So yeah, maybe you got a few ideas off of this. You know, I really love this coop and I won't get rid of it. But it is a bear to move and it is a workout every single day. Maybe one day I park it and it becomes a static coop, and I'll take those wheels off and put them on something else. But I don't think that this coop's going away. It's too well built, it's too nice, and it's too functional. Okay, finally, we have the most recent build. So I've got an entire video on sort of how this is built, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I'll let this serve as sort of an update. I've been using this coop now for about 6 weeks or so, and I'm really enjoying it. It does solve some of the issues that I had with the bigger, heavier tractor, but it retains almost all of the features. This does have rainwater collection going down both sides of the roof into gutters. It does have a rollaway nest box in the back. So one of the things that I've come to really love about this coop is the arched roof. It means that when I go inside, I can walk all the way to the back, standing straight up. And that's really nice and not possible in the shed roof coop. Somebody's laying an egg in there, huh? She is loud. One thing that I was really aiming for when I built this coop was to make it much lighter weight. And I have to say, I achieved that, and this is much easier to move than the other coop. However, that lighter weight also means that it doesn't conform to the ground quite as well. If there's a hole or a dip in the ground, it's much more likely to leave a large gap under the bottom plate of the walls. And that's problematic because predators can get in there, chickens can get out of there, and my dog, who loves eggs, can stick his snout under those little gaps and steal eggs. I think the lightweight overall is a positive, but I do just have to be much more mindful when I set this down about what the situation is and how far off the ground it is in the corners and along the edges. So one thing when I built this that I really wasn't sure about is these trailer jacks. And let me tell you, they have worked out great. It is super easy to go back here to the back and just jack them up. It takes a little bit longer than the wheel system on the big heavy coop, but they work really well. And the doubled trailer jack wheels, there's two of them. The doubled wheels have plenty enough width to pick the coop up without sinking into the mud. And it's been muddy. So I'm really happy with how that worked out. It's really nice to just be able to lift the coop up only as much as you need to in the back so that the chickens can't escape. On the bigger coop, it has been an issue in the past since there's only one height. If you're on uneven ground, sometimes one corner of that coop will be pretty far off the ground and the chickens can scoot out from under it. So it's nice here to be able to dial it in, even though it takes a little second. Another thing which I really like about this coop is these troughs, which can be filled from the outside. So I am afraid that they might weather a bit, so I think I might need to put some paint at least on the outside of them, but I've really enjoyed the access from the outside. Additionally, I am loving the rollaway nest box. I made a whole video about how much I love it, and that's why I put one in the other coop, but suffice it to say, these have been great for collecting eggs that are clean, undamaged, and being able to do so from the outside of the coop. It's just really nice. So compared to the other large laying chicken tractor, this one has a very unsophisticated rainwater collection system. It's basically just a gutter draining into a pipe that goes straight into a bucket. And let me tell you, this is the way I wish I would have done it to begin with. This is so much easier and so much more straightforward than the other coop. I wish I would have just gone this way to begin with. There's really nothing to fail here. It's just a draining system. It's just gravity. It's very, very straightforward. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how that's working. So that pretty much wraps up the tour of all of our chicken coops here on Page Farmstead. I think you see how much we value mobility in the coops and ease of use. You know, I have a full-time job, and so it's important to me that I be able to get out here, do the chicken chores quickly and efficiently, and get back to all the other things that we have going on in our lives, like kids and family. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything that I didn't cover that you're wondering about, just leave me a question in the comments and I'll definitely get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Page Farmstead.